A black man named Marcus Reed finds himself wrongfully apprehended by two biased police officers, Mitchell and Blake. However, when Marcus's true identity is revealed, everyone inside the police station is left utterly stunned. What exactly happened? And who is Marcus Reed that made the entire station realize they were confronting not just a legal predicament, but a profound reckoning? Let's explore the story together. But before we jump in, share in the comments where you're watching from today. And if this tale speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. In the city's core, it was a typical morning. The sun began to rise behind towering skyscrapers, casting long shadows onto the bustling streets below. The atmosphere buzzed with the sounds of car horns, distant sirens, and lively conversations. People were starting their day, hurrying to work, grabbing their morning coffee, or walking their dogs. Among the energetic crowd, Marcus Reed walked with a serene demeanor, contrasting sharply with the surrounding rush. In his mid-30s, Marcus donned a sharp-tailored suit. His gleaming shoes tapped rhythmically against the sidewalk as he made his way forward. A gentle smile adorned his face as he adjusted the cuffs of his crisp white shirt. He drew attention not by seeking it, but through the quiet confidence he naturally exuded, the kind of presence that attracts glances effortlessly. He had just finished breakfast at a local diner, a place he frequented whenever he had the time. The staff recognized him by name, always ensuring his order was precise: scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, and a side of fruit. As he approached his sleek black sedan parked nearby, Marcus felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Taking it out, he saw a message from his mother, reminding him of their dinner plans that evening. With a smile, he quickly responded, assuring her he hadn't forgotten. He looked forward to it. Family meant the world to him. Just as he was about to unlock his car, Marcus noticed two police officers approaching him. Their eyes were fixed on him, their expressions stern and unreadable. He didn't recognize them, which wasn't unusual. New officers often rotated through the neighborhood. What felt strange was the intensity of their stare. Growing up, Marcus had learned how to behave around the police, especially as a black man. His father had instilled in him early on to remain calm, be respectful, and never give them a reason to escalate a situation, lessons deeply embedded in his memory. "Excuse me, sir," one of the officers called out as they drew nearer. Marcus paused, turning to face them, his phone still in hand. "Yes, officer," he responded, his voice steady and polite. He noticed the name on the officer's badge, Mitchell. The other officer, Blake, stood slightly behind, his hand resting near his holster. "Can I see some ID?" Mitchell demanded sharply. There was no greeting or explanation for their approach. Marcus had been in similar situations before, but something about this encounter felt different. A tension filled the air, heightening his instincts. "May I ask why?" Marcus replied calmly, careful not to escalate the situation but also aware of his rights. He hadn't done anything wrong and saw no reason for them to request his ID. Mitchell smirked slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Just show us your ID, sir. It's a simple request." Meeting Mitchell's gaze for a moment, Marcus slowly reached into his jacket pocket. "All right," he said, pulling out his wallet. "But I'd still like to know why you're asking." As he handed over his driver's license, he noticed Blake shift slightly, as if preparing for something. Marcus's senses heightened, but he maintained his composure. Mitchell examined the ID without changing his expression. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" he asked accusatorily. A slight furrow appeared on Marcus's brow. "I'm just heading to my car," he answered honestly. "Is there a problem?" Ignoring the question, Mitchell continued, "Where are you coming from?" "I had breakfast at the diner down the street," Marcus replied. "Like I said, is there a problem, officer?" Mitchell's eyes flicked up to meet Marcus's, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face before he handed back the ID. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in the area," he said, the smirk returning. "You match the description of someone we're looking for." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. He knew where this was heading, a familiar narrative. A black man in a nice neighborhood dressed well must be up to no good. He'd heard it all before, but that didn't make it any easier. "I see," Marcus said carefully. "Well, I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. I'm just here to get to my car and head to work." Mitchell seemed not to hear him, stepping closer with a more aggressive posture. "What kind of work do you do?" "I'm a lawyer," Marcus replied evenly. "I have a meeting in an hour, so if there's nothing else, I'd like to be on my way." Mitchell appeared momentarily taken aback. His smirk faltered but quickly returned. "A lawyer, huh? You don't say." Blake, who had been silent, finally spoke up. "You sure you're not hiding anything? Got anything illegal in that car of yours?" The tension escalated. Marcus knew how quickly these situations could spiral. He needed to stay calm and diffuse it. "There's nothing illegal in my car, officer." "You're welcome to check, but I'd prefer if you didn't waste your time. I'm just trying to get to work." Mitchell's eyes hardened. "You don't get to decide how we do our job. Step away from the car." Marcus hesitated. He knew he hadn't done anything wrong, but the situation was becoming dangerous. He had to choose, comply, and hope it didn't escalate, or stand his ground and risk worsening things. His father's voice echoed in his mind, urging calm and wisdom. "All right," Marcus said slowly, raising his hands slightly to show he wasn't a threat. "I'll step back." He moved away from the car, and as he did, Mitchell advanced, his hand now on his baton. Marcus's heart raced, but he kept his face neutral, not showing fear. Without warning, Mitchell grabbed Marcus's arm, twisting it behind his back. The sudden move caught Marcus off guard, and he winced in pain. Before he could react, Blake was on him too, forcing him to the ground. "Hey, what are you doing?" Marcus protested, trying to keep his voice calm despite the pain in his shoulder. He wasn't resisting, but they were treating him as if he were. "You're under arrest for resisting arrest," Mitchell said coldly, tightening the cuffs around Marcus's wrists. Marcus's mind raced. Resisting arrest? He hadn't resisted anything, he'd followed their instructions. He tried to reason with them, to stay calm, but it didn't matter. They'd made up their minds the moment they saw him. By now, the commotion had drawn the attention of bystanders. An elderly woman, Mrs. Evelyn Turner, watched in horror from her balcony across the street. She knew Marcus, having seen him in the neighborhood many times. "What are you doing to him?" she called out, her voice trembling with outrage. "He didn't do anything wrong." A young couple walking their dog had also stopped. The man began recording with his phone. "This is messed up," he muttered. "They're arresting him for nothing." Marcus saw the phone recording and felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe the footage would help later, showing the truth. But for now, he was powerless. As the officers pulled him to his feet, he forced himself to stay calm, focusing on not saying anything that could be used against him. They led him to the police car, the crowd growing, people shouting their disapproval. "This isn't right," someone yelled. "He didn't do anything." Mitchell and Blake ignored the crowd, their faces set with determination. They pushed Marcus into the back of the squad car, slamming the door behind him. Before they could drive away, Marcus looked out the window at the gathered people. He saw concern, anger, and confusion on their faces. Taking a deep breath, he called out, "This isn't over! This isn't over!" His words hung in the air as the car pulled away, leaving the stunned crowd behind. Inside the car, Marcus's thoughts raced. He wondered what would happen next, how he would fight this, how he would ensure justice was served. The police station was a stark contrast to the bustling streets. Cold gray walls, harsh fluorescent lights, and a constant hum of activity set the scene. Officers moved briskly, some chatting, others focused on their tasks. The station was busy, but an underlying tension made people speak in hushed tones. Marcus was led through the front doors, hands still cuffed behind his back. Officers Mitchell and Blake flanked him, their expressions unreadable. As they passed through the booking area, a few officers glanced up, eyes narrowing as they took in Marcus's appearance, a well-dressed black man who seemed oddly composed. "Over here," Mitchell barked, directing Marcus toward a desk where a tired-looking officer sat behind a computer. The officer glanced up briefly before focusing on the screen. "Name?" he asked, fingers poised over the keyboard. "Marcus Reed," Mitchell replied before Marcus could speak. The officer typed the name, frowning slightly but saying nothing. He motioned for Mitchell to bring Marcus to the fingerprinting station. "Let's get this over with," Mitchell muttered, pushing Marcus forward. Marcus didn't resist, remaining silent as they took his fingerprints. He couldn't believe this was happening, but knew he had to stay calm and think clearly. This wasn't the first time he'd faced such a situation, and likely wouldn't be the last. Once fingerprinting was done, Mitchell and Blake led Marcus to a small holding cell. The cramped space had a narrow bench and a metal toilet in the corner. The air was thick with disinfectant and an unpleasant sour odor. They uncuffed him and shoved him inside. "Make yourself comfortable," Blake sneered sarcastically. "You might be here a while." Marcus sat on the bench, taking a deep breath. He didn't respond to their taunts. There was no point. He knew they were trying to provoke him, to get a reaction, but he wouldn't give them the satisfaction. As Mitchell and Blake walked away, they exchanged a glance, a silent understanding between them. They'd done their job, brought in another troublemaker, and could move on. But something about this arrest nagged at Mitchell. The way Marcus had handled himself, calm and confident, didn't fit the usual profile. "Think he's a lawyer, huh?" Blake scoffed as they returned to the front desk. "Probably just another punk in a fancy suit." "Yeah," Mitchell muttered, though his mind was elsewhere. He wasn't so sure anymore. Something felt off, but he couldn't pinpoint it. He shook his head, pushing the thought away. It didn't matter. They'd followed orders. At the front desk, a young officer named Turner, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward, eager to prove himself he was smart, smarter than most gave him credit for. "Hey, Mitchell," Turner called softly. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Mitchell frowned. "What is it?" Turner hesitated, ensuring no one else was listening. "That guy you brought in, Marcus Reed, I think I know who he is." Mitchell's frown deepened. "What are you talking about?" "I saw him in a news article a few weeks ago," Turner said quietly. "He's not just a lawyer. He's a civil rights attorney, a pretty big deal. He's been involved in major cases, high-profile stuff." Mitchell's eyes widened slightly before masking his surprise. "Are you sure?" "Positive," Turner replied. "I didn't recognize him at first, but when I heard the name, it clicked. You might want to be careful with this one. If he's who I think he is, this could blow up in our faces." Mitchell didn't respond immediately, feeling a knot form in his stomach. Could this be true? They'd arrested him fairly. There was no way he could be someone important. But doubt nagged at him. "I'll handle it," Mitchell said curtly, dismissing Turner with a wave. But as he turned away, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Turner watched him go, then pulled out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts, finding the number he needed. Taking a deep breath, he dialed. "At the station. I think you need to know about it." Meanwhile, back in the holding cell, Marcus sat quietly, thoughts focused. He knew this wasn't just about him. It was about something bigger. He was certain he'd been targeted, but didn't know why. An hour passed before anything happened. The door to the holding area swung open, and a woman stepped inside. In her late 30s, with sharp eyes and an authoritative air, Lieutenant Emily, their demeanor catching her attention. She trusted her instincts, and they told her something was off. "Mitchell, Blake," she called, approaching them. "What's going on here?" Mitchell looked up, surprised. "Nothing much, ma'am, just another day." Her eyes narrowed. "Really? Because I heard you brought someone in this morning, a man named Marcus Reed." Mitchell stiffened but quickly recovered. "Yes, ma'am, we did." "And what was the charge?" she asked, her tone probing. "Resisting arrest," Mitchell replied steadily. "We had reason to believe he was involved in suspicious activity. When we questioned him, he refused to cooperate." Davis raised an eyebrow. "Did he now?" Mitchell nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She didn't respond immediately, studying Mitchell's face for any sign of deceit. She'd dealt with officers like him before, those who thought they could bend the rules. But she was different. She did things by the book and expected the same from her team. "Take me to him," she said finally, leaving no room for argument. Mitchell hesitated for a split second before nodding. "Right this way, ma'am." As they walked to the holding cells, Davis couldn't shake the feeling that more was going on. When they reached Marcus's cell, she stopped, her gaze locking onto the man inside. He sat on the bench, hands folded, posture relaxed despite the circumstances. Something about him made her pause. "This is him?" she asked, turning to Mitchell. "Yes, ma'am," Mitchell confirmed. "Like I said, he resisted arrest, so we had no choice but to bring him in." Davis opened the cell door, stepping inside. Marcus looked up, meeting her gaze with calm, steady eyes. He didn't seem intimidated or defiant, just composed. "Mr. Reed," Davis said, her voice measured. "I'm Lieutenant Davis. I'd like to ask you a few questions." "Of course, Lieutenant," Marcus replied politely. "I'm happy to cooperate." She nodded. "I've been told you resisted arrest, leading to your detainment. I'd like to hear your side." Marcus kept his gaze steady. "Lieutenant, I did no such thing. I complied with every instruction from Officers Mitchell and Blake. I was walking to my car when they stopped me. I asked why I was being detained, and that simple question seemed to escalate the situation. Before I knew it, I was handcuffed and accused of resisting, despite following their orders." Davis listened carefully, eyes narrowing as she processed his words. His tone was calm and measured, with an underlying firmness. He wasn't just trying to talk his way out of trouble. She turned to Mitchell, standing behind her with Blake. "Is that true, Mitchell?" she asked sharply. "Did Mr. Reed comply with your instructions?" Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. "Well, ma'am, he questioned us, and things got tense. We had reason to believe he might be hiding something." "And what exactly was that reason?" Davis pressed. Mitchell hesitated, unable to provide a convincing answer. "It was just a gut feeling, ma'am." "A gut feeling?" Davis repeated incredulously. "Is that the basis for arrests now?" Before Mitchell could respond, the holding area door opened again. All eyes turned as Officer Turner entered, slightly out of breath. He paused, seeing the group in the cell. "Lieutenant, I need to speak with you," Turner said swiftly, glancing between Marcus and Mitchell. Davis gave Mitchell one last stern look before exiting the cell and shutting the door behind her. "What is it, Turner?" He hushed his voice. "Ma'am, I've been investigating Marcus Reed. He's not just any lawyer. He's a renowned civil rights attorney involved in major cases that have made headlines. If word spreads that we arrested him without cause, it'll be a disaster." Davis felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. She had suspected there was more to this situation, but discovering who Marcus truly was heightened the seriousness. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely," Turner responded, displaying a web page on his phone showcasing Marcus's profile. "This is him. If we don't handle this carefully, we're going to face more than just an internal investigation." Davis quickly scanned the page, absorbing details about Marcus's background. He wasn't merely a lawyer. He was a powerhouse in the legal community, having challenged police departments, corporations, and government agencies. The type of person who could upheave the entire station if mishandled. She turned to Mitchell and Blake, who now appeared increasingly uneasy. "We need to discuss this immediately," she stated urgently. They followed her to a private area. Davis confronted them with a fierce expression. "Do you have any idea who you've detained?" "Marcus Reed isn't just some random individual. He's a civil rights attorney and a federal asset. He's been collecting evidence on police corruption that could implicate this department." Mitchell turned pale. "We weren't aware, Lieutenant. He didn't mention anything about being a lawyer." "That's irrelevant," Davis snapped. "You should have conducted proper due diligence. Now we need to determine how to handle this quickly." At that moment, raised voices from outside began to seep in. Davis noticed the crowd outside was growing louder, hearing the unmistakable chants of protesters demanding justice and Marcus's release. "Just great," she muttered. "Exactly what we needed." Turner stepped forward. "Lieutenant, the community is enraged. Activists, local leaders, and media are arriving. If we don't act swiftly, this could escalate into a full-blown crisis. Davis acknowledged his point. Small incidents could spiral into larger issues if not addressed properly. However, this situation was different. It wasn't just about calming tensions. It was about safeguarding the department's integrity and avoiding a legal and public relations nightmare. "We need to take control of this," she declared decisively. "Mitchell, Blake, prepare a comprehensive report detailing every aspect of the arrest. Turner, assist me in managing the press. We need to shape the narrative." As the officers dispersed to carry out their tasks, Davis felt the pressure mounting. Having been at the station for only a few weeks, she was already facing a potential disaster. Nevertheless, she was determined not to let it tarnish her career or the department's reputation. Inside the holding cell, Marcus listened to the escalating noise outside. He heard the crowd growing louder, their voices resonating. He knew his family and community leaders would be among them. They wouldn't let this injustice go unanswered. A flicker of hope emerged, but he understood it was premature. The police still held control and could manipulate the situation. He wasn't about to underestimate them. At the front of the station, tensions continued to rise. The crowd had swelled to over 100 people, brandishing signs and banners demanding justice. Reporters arrived, capturing every moment on camera. The station had become a flashpoint, a symbol of mounting unrest. Lieutenant Davis observed from the window. Her jaw clenched. She needed to act, but she was walking a fine line. One wrong move could cause everything to explode, while inaction would let things spiral out of control. She turned to Turner beside her. "We need to release him," she stated firmly. "It's the only way to de-escalate." Turner agreed. "But how do we explain it to the media? They won't accept us letting him go without a reason." Davis thought on her feet. "We'll present it as a misunderstanding. Explain that after reviewing the evidence, we found no basis for the arrest and released him. Emphasize our commitment to justice and taking these matters seriously. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was their best option. With any luck, it would pacify the crowd and prevent further escalation." She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she had to consider the bigger picture, the department, her career, and the potential fallout. Davis turned away from the window, heading back to the holding area. She was determined to resolve this before it worsened. Passing Mitchell and Blake, who were hurriedly typing reports, she paused. "When this is over, we're going to have a long discussion about what went wrong," she said coldly. "And believe me, it won't be pleasant." Mitchell nodded silently, fully aware he was in deep trouble. There was nothing left but to hope Davis could rectify the situation. Upon reaching Marcus's cell, Davis opened the door herself, stepping inside with measured calmness. "Mr. Reed, I've reviewed the situation, and it's clear there was a misunderstanding. You're free to go." Marcus rose slowly, his expression guarded. "A misunderstanding, Lieutenant? Is that what we're calling it?" She met his gaze without hesitation. "Yes, I'm deeply sorry for what happened. It shouldn't have escalated this far." He studied her, searching for any sign of insincerity. Finally, he nodded. "I appreciate your apology, Lieutenant, but you should know this isn't over." Davis didn't doubt his resolve. She knew Marcus wasn't someone who would let this go quietly. For now, her priority was ensuring his safe release and calming the situation outside. She escorted Marcus out, passing officers who avoided making eye contact. As they reached the front door, Davis paused, taking a deep breath. "I'll do everything I can to make this right," she said quietly. Marcus nodded but remained silent. Stepping outside, the crowd erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but Marcus ignored them, calmly walking toward his waiting family and friends. As he embraced them, Davis watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable. She knew this was only the beginning. Marcus Reed wouldn't let this go without a fight, and the repercussions would be felt for a long time. But for now, the immediate crisis was averted. The crowd began to disperse, reporters packing up, and the tension started to ease. Davis realized she had a long road ahead to mend the damage, but was determined to face it head-on. As Marcus walked away, he knew this was just the start of a new battle. He had been wronged, but also knew how to transform that wrong into something powerful. The truth would emerge, and when it did, the police department and the town would never be the same. The tension within the police station had been palpable since Marcus Reed was released. Lieutenant Emily Davis couldn't shake the feeling that the situation was far from resolved. Sitting in her office, reviewing preliminary reports from Mitchell and Blake, her thoughts kept drifting back to Marcus. Something about the way he'd conducted himself, calm, composed, almost expectant, persistently bothered her. She trusted her instincts. If she had learned anything, it was to rely on her gut, especially when things didn't add up. Outside her office, the station hummed with subdued energy. Officers moved about, avoiding eye contact, fully aware they were still on edge. The crowd outside had mostly dispersed, but the damage was already done. Everyone knew this wouldn't simply blow over. Davis leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The silence starkly contrasted with the turmoil in her mind. She knew she had to investigate further to understand who Marcus truly was, and why his arrest had such significant repercussions. She couldn't let this go unanswered, for her own sake and the department's integrity. Reaching for her computer, she typed swiftly, searching for information on Marcus. The results were startling. Articles, news clips, and interviews painted a picture of a man far more than just a lawyer. Marcus Reed was a formidable civil rights attorney who had challenged powerful entities, winning cases that made headlines and changed lives. As she delved deeper, one detail made her blood run cold. Marcus had been involved in a federal investigation into systemic racism within law enforcement. The investigation had led to federal oversight of several departments, with rumors that more were under scrutiny. Her heart pounded as she grasped the implications. Quickly, she made a call to a trusted contact in the FBI, someone who could provide information discreetly. The conversation was brief, but by the end, her suspicions were confirmed. Marcus Reed was working undercover, gathering evidence for a federal case that could bring down high-ranking officials within local law enforcement. Him had unknowingly walked into a trap. If this information leaked, it would become a scandal of epic proportions. She knew she had to confront Mitchell and Blake, but needed more information first. Spending the next hour piecing together everything she could about Marcus's work, connections, and the ongoing federal investigation. The more she uncovered, the more perilous the situation became. Finally, Davis stood, taking a deep breath. She was about to enter a storm, but had no choice. She couldn't let the department fall apart because of someone else's mistake. Making her way to the officer's bullpen, she steeled herself. Approaching Mitchell and Blake, she saw them reviewing their reports. They looked up as she approached, sensing the tension. "Lieutenant," Mitchell greeted, his tone guarded. "Is there something you need?" Davis crossed her arms, fixing them with a hard stare. "We need to talk now." They exchanged a glance before nodding, following her to an empty conference room. The room was stark, a place for difficult conversations. Both knew this wouldn't be pleasant. "Lieutenant, what's this about?" Blake tried to sound casual, but tension edged his voice. She didn't waste time. "I know who Marcus Reed is." Mitchell's eyes widened. Blake stiffened. Neither spoke, but panic flickered in their expressions. They hadn't known who they were dealing with, and now it was backfiring. "Do you have any idea what trouble you've caused?" Davis continued, her voice low and dangerous. "Marcus Reed is a civil rights attorney and a federal asset. He's been working undercover to gather evidence on police corruption, evidence that could implicate this department." Mitchell's face drained of color. "We didn't know, Lieutenant. He didn't say anything about being undercover. We thought he was just another what?" Davis snapped. "Just another black man you could push around without consequences?" Blake flinched, looking down. Mitchell opened his mouth but couldn't respond. "You've put us all at risk," Davis stated icily. "Not just the department, but the entire city. If this investigation blows up, we're all going down." Blake looked sick. "What do we do now, Lieutenant?" Before she could answer, the conference room door burst open. Chief Harold Bennett stormed in, his face flushed with anger. "Lieutenant Davis," he barked. "What the hell is going on?" Davis straightened. "Chief, we have a serious problem. Marcus Reed is—" "I know exactly who Marcus Reed is," Bennett interrupted, his voice dripping with venom. "And I know what kind of mess you've made." Davis blinked, surprised. "Chief, Save it," Bennett snapped. "Do you have any idea what position you've put this department in? We have a civil rights attorney working undercover, and you've handed him all the ammunition he needs to take us down." Davis's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, Chief, it's not just on me. Officers Mitchell and Blake made the arrest without cause, and now we're all paying the price." Bennett's eyes flicked to Mitchell and Blake, hardening. "We'll deal with them later. Right now we need to focus on damage control." Davis nodded, trying to stay composed. "I've started looking into the situation. There's a federal investigation into systemic racism within law enforcement, tied to recent federal oversight of local police. Marcus Reed has been gathering evidence. If we don't handle this carefully, it could destroy us." Bennett's anger simmered. "What's our next move?" Before she could respond, a knock came at the door. A young officer poked his head in, looking nervous. "Chief, Lieutenant, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." Bennett frowned. "Who is it?" The officer swallowed. "A federal agent. His name is Brooks." Silence fell as the weight of those words settled. Davis exchanged a tense glance with the chief. This was the moment they'd dreaded. "Send him in," Bennett ordered tightly. A moment later, Agent Samuel Brooks stepped inside, a tall, imposing man with a stern expression. His dark suit was impeccably tailored, the badge on his belt gleaming. "Chief Bennett, Lieutenant Davis," he greeted curtly, eyes scanning the room. "We need to talk." Bennett tried to maintain control. "Agent Brooks, I'm sure we can explain." Brooks raised a hand to silence him. "No need for explanations, Chief. I'm aware of what's happened. Let me be clear, this is a very serious matter." Davis felt her pulse quicken, the severity evident in his tone. "Marcus Reed is a key asset in a federal investigation," Brooks continued. "An investigation months in the making. His arrest was a mistake that could have far-reaching consequences if not handled properly." Bennett shifted uncomfortably. "We understand, Agent Brooks. We're prepared to cooperate fully." "Good," Brooks replied sharply, "because your cooperation is the only thing that will keep this situation from escalating." Davis's mind raced, grasping the full extent. This wasn't just about Marcus. It was about the entire department and city. If they didn't tread carefully, it could all collapse. "You will provide him with a formal apology," Brooks stated. "Any resistance will be met with swift action." Bennett's face flushed with anger, but he nodded stiffly. "Understood." Brooks turned to Davis, his expression unreadable. "Lieutenant, I expect you to oversee this personally. Ensure there are no further incidents." She nodded, her mouth dry. "I'll take care of it." With that, Brooks gave a curt nod and left. Before exiting, he glanced back. "Consider this your warning. The federal government is watching closely. Any further misconduct will not be tolerated." As the door closed, silence enveloped the room. Davis felt the weight of the situation pressing down, suffocating. The road ahead would be treacherous, but she had no choice but to navigate it. The atmosphere at the station remained heavy with tension. The wrongful arrest had sparked outrage, not just locally, but citywide. Protests erupted outside, with activists and citizens demanding justice. Inside, Chief Bennett attempted to salvage his reputation. He knew they were on the brink of disaster, and the only way to prevent it from spiraling was to issue a public apology. But he also understood that words alone might not suffice to quell long-standing anger. In his office, Bennett stared at the phone, hands trembling slightly as he dialed the public relations team. He needed to prepare a statement to demonstrate to the community that they were taking this seriously. But deep down, he knew no carefully crafted words could undo the damage. When the PR team answered, Bennett spoke in a low tone. "I need you to draft a public apology. We'll address the media outside the station this afternoon." "Understood, Chief. We'll prepare something immediately," came the reply. Hanging up, Bennett leaned back, running a hand through his hair. The consequences of years of overlooking officers crossing the line were catching up to him. He'd convinced himself that compromises were necessary to maintain peace, but now they haunted him. A knock pulled him from his thoughts. Lieutenant Davis stood in the doorway, her expression tense but determined. "Chief, Marcus Reed is waiting outside with the crowd." Bennett nodded, standing. "Good. I'm going out to make the apology." Davis paused for a moment before moving forward. "Chief, there's something I need to inform you about before you step out there." He lifted an eyebrow. "What is it?" She inhaled deeply. "I've discovered evidence of systemic corruption within our department, bribery, cover-ups, racial profiling. This issue extends beyond just Mitchell and Blake. It's been ongoing for years, hidden away." Bennett felt a shiver run down his spine. "Are you certain?" Davis nodded. "I've begun collecting evidence. With Marcus's assistance and the federal oversight team, we can initiate the cleanup, but it will be a lengthy and challenging process." He exhaled slowly, his shoulders drooping. "Then we must do what's necessary. It's time to face the consequences." Davis returned his nod. "I'll support you out there, Chief. We need to demonstrate to the community that we're committed to change." Together, they made their way to the station's entrance. As they approached the doors, the sounds of the crowd, angry voices demanding justice, filled the air. Bennett felt his stomach tighten, but maintained a neutral expression as he stepped outside. The crowd instantly quieted, cameras flashing and microphones thrust forward. Reporters shouted questions, but Bennett remained focused on the podium set up for the press conference. Among the crowd, he spotted Marcus, his expression unreadable. Clearing his throat, Bennett approached the microphone. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice steady yet strained. "I want to address the events that occurred earlier today. The arrest of Mr. Marcus Reed was a mistake, one that should never have happened. I take full responsibility and extend my sincerest apologies to Mr. Reed and the community." The crowd murmured, a mix of skepticism and anger rippling through them. Bennett felt the immense pressure, the burden of decades of mistrust. "We understand that this incident is part of a larger issue," he continued solemnly. "A problem that has lingered too long within our department. I assure you we are dedicated to addressing these concerns directly. Effective immediately, Officers Mitchell and Blake have been suspended pending an internal investigation. We will conduct a thorough review of our practices and collaborate closely with federal oversight to ensure accountability." The crowd remained silent, listening intently, though doubt still lingered in their eyes. "I realize that words alone are insufficient," Bennett admitted, his voice wavering slightly. "We have a significant amount of work to rebuild trust. However, we are committed to implementing the necessary changes. We will work alongside community leaders, activists, and organizations to create a department that serves and protects everyone, regardless of race or background." He paused, searching for the right words. Before he could continue, Marcus stepped forward, raising his hand. "Chief Bennett," he addressed calmly but firmly, "I appreciate the apology, but this isn't solely about words. True justice requires tangible change, genuine accountability, and unwavering commitment." Bennett nodded slowly, stepping back. He recognized that Marcus was right, an apology was merely the beginning. Turning his attention to the crowd, Marcus took command. "We've heard apologies before," he stated, his voice carrying powerfully. "But what we need now is a commitment to real, lasting change. We must hold those in power accountable and collaborate to create a system that treats everyone with fairness and dignity." The crowd erupted in applause, voices rising in agreement. Marcus's words resonated deeply, cutting through the layers of anger and frustration. "This isn't just about what happened to me," Marcus continued. "It's about all of us, about every person wronged by a system meant to protect them. It's about ensuring that no one else endures what I did, and making justice a reality, not just a concept." The crowd cheered. Marcus paused, allowing the energy to wash over him. He saw hope in their eyes, a collective desire for something better. It was a powerful moment. Change doesn't occur overnight, he acknowledged, his tone measured. It requires time, effort, and all of us working together. But I believe we can achieve it. We can build a better future for ourselves and the generations to come. As the applause swelled, Marcus stepped back. The overwhelming response from the crowd filled him with determination. He knew this was just the beginning of a long, arduous journey, but he was ready to lead the fight for justice. As Marcus navigated through the crowd, embracing supporters, Lieutenant Davis watched from the steps. She felt a blend of relief and resolve, relief that the immediate crisis was managed, and resolve to see the necessary changes through. She understood that the department had a challenging path ahead, but believed that with leaders like Marcus, they could succeed. Turning to Chief Bennett, who stood by the podium with an expression of exhaustion and determination, she whispered, "We have a lot of work to do." Bennett nodded, eyes fixed on the crowd. "Yes, we do, but we'll get through this." As the crowd began to disperse, Davis noticed a figure lingering at the edge, a tall man in a dark suit exuding an air of quiet authority. He watched Marcus intently, his expression unreadable. Curious, Davis approached him. "Can I help you?" she asked. The man turned, his eyes sharp. "I'm here to speak with Mr. Reed," he replied softly. "I have a message for him." Davis frowned. "Who are you?" He offered a slight smile, though warmth didn't reach his eyes. "Just someone with a vested interest in seeing justice done." Before she could respond, he moved toward Marcus, disappearing into the crowd. Davis watched with unease. Whoever he was, she sensed this wouldn't be the last they'd encounter him. As the sun set, casting long shadows, Davis realized that the day's events were merely the beginning. The fight for justice was far from over, and the road ahead was filled with uncertainty. Yet for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps they could start making things right. Across the city, at a small community center, another significant meeting was taking place. Marcus sat at a table with community leaders, activists, legal experts, and concerned citizens. They were discussing the Community Justice Initiative, debating strategies and priorities. "We need to focus on education," argued Laura Martinez, a local teacher. "For lasting change, we have to start with the youth." "I agree," responded Dr. Alan Turner, a sociology professor. "But we can't ignore immediate needs. We need a multi-pronged approach." Marcus listened attentively, impressed by the passion and expertise present. This was the collaborative effort he had hoped for, leveraging the community's strengths. They began formulating concrete plans, establishing a legal aid clinic for those who couldn't afford representation, developing a community oversight board to work alongside the police department's internal affairs, and creating educational programs focusing on civil rights and civic engagement. By the end of the meeting, everyone felt energized. They had a long road ahead but had taken the first steps together. As weeks turned into months, the city witnessed small yet significant changes. Under Davis's vigilant supervision and the new oversight board, the police department implemented new training programs focused on de-escalation and cultural sensitivity. Officers like Turner, eager to improve, collaborated directly with community leaders. The Community Justice Initiative quickly took off. The Legal Aid Clinic handled dozens of cases, providing representation to those wrongfully arrested or subjected to misconduct. Educational programs were piloted in schools, with plans to expand citywide. Perhaps the most notable change was in the city's atmosphere, a renewed sense of engagement, with people coming together to address issues. Neighborhood watch groups collaborated with police to enhance safety without racial profiling. Community forums offered platforms for open dialogue. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Incidents of misconduct still occurred. Moments of tension and mistrust remained. Change was gradual, and resistance persisted. However, systems were in place to address issues, hold individuals accountable, and continue pushing forward. 6 months after the incident, Marcus found himself back at the police station, not as a suspect or victim, but as a partner. He had been invited to speak at a training session for new recruits, sharing his perspective to help shape the next generation. Walking through the halls, he reflected on how much had changed. The atmosphere was different, still bustling but more open. Officers greeted him respectfully, some even shook his hand. Lieutenant Davis met him at the training room door. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Reed," she said warmly. "Your perspective will be invaluable." "Glad to be here," he replied. "And please, call me Marcus." Entering the room, Marcus saw young faces looking up, some curious, others wary. He understood their hesitation. He represented a challenge to the status quo. But he also saw potential for real change. "Good morning," he began calmly. "I'm Marcus Reed. I'm here to talk about justice. Not just the kind you'll be sworn to uphold, but justice that transcends badges in courtrooms. Justice that's about treating every person with dignity and respect." As he spoke, sharing experiences and insights, he saw recruits listening intently. They asked thoughtful questions, engaged in respectful debate, genuinely interested in becoming better officers. After the session, a young recruit approached, a woman barely out of her teens, determination in her eyes. "Mr. Reed," she said hesitantly, "thank you for coming. I joined to make a difference, to help people. After everything, I wondered if I made a mistake. Listening to you reminded me why I'm here." Marcus smiled, touched. "What's your name?" "Jessica," she replied. "Jessica Lee." "Well, Jessica, I'm glad you're here. The department needs people like you, those who want to make a difference, willing to question and learn. Don't lose that spirit." As Jessica walked away, Marcus felt hope surge. People like her would determine if the changes they fought for would endure. Later that evening, Marcus sat in his office at the Community Justice Initiative, reviewing case files. The work was endless but fulfilling. Each victory, each life improved, made it worthwhile. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Laura Martinez entered, excitement evident. "Marcus, I just got out of a meeting with the school board. They've approved our curriculum for all high schools." He stood, a broad smile spreading across his face. "That's fantastic news, Laura. Your hard work is paying off." Marcus shook his head. "I may have been a catalyst, but this movement is bigger than me. It's about all of us." Discussing the curriculum rollout, Marcus felt deep satisfaction. This was real change, not just protests, but actions shaping the future. Later that night, heading home, he paused outside the office. The street was quiet, the city settling. He thought about how much had changed in 6 months and how much work lay ahead. Looking up at the twinkling stars, he felt peace wash over him. They were on the right path. It wouldn't be easy and setbacks would come, but as long as they kept pushing forward, working together, they could build the community they dreamed of, where justice was a lived reality for everyone. With renewed determination, Marcus began walking home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference. And he was ready to face them, one step at a time. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to my channel. Crafting these heartfelt narratives takes a lot of time.